Hello everybody, it's me Samkio, WoopaGaming, and today I'm going to show you how to use and install the very in-depth guide on how to use WorldGuard. Now this is going to be just me, it's going to be very formal, very in-depth, less colloquial than the plugin showcases, and I'm going to show you how to use and install it. So first of all, WorldGuard is a way of protecting your worlds in your server against things like fire, TNT, creeper damage, ice melting, leaf decay. It also has some region protections, which we're going to go over later. It has some blacklists, so players can't do certain actions in certain worlds and certain groups. We're going to go over all of that, and it also has some general commands like God and heal, and some useful ones as well. And it has loads of stuff, and we're going to be going over pretty much all of it. So I'm going to do this in 3 parts. The first part is going to be the configuration and the blacklists. The second part is going to be the regions, and the third part is going to be any other like God commands and stuff like that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is install it. So let's open up my plugin directory, and we're going to go to the website WorldGuard and hit download. So for this, you're going to need world edit. If you want to use the region commands, you're going to want to install world edit. Now if you don't want to install world edit but you still want to use WorldGuard, you can place world edit in your server directory, your root directory, and it won't run it. But for this case we're going to go over doing the region commands, and so we're going to need world edit as an actual plugin. So let's go and install world edit as well. So you install it the exact same way. You get a zip and drag across the world edit.jar. Okay, so now that's done, I'm going to start the server up, and hopefully you'll get all this stuff about creating configurations and stuff. And that should all be good. It says about world edit enabled and WorldGuard enabled as well. So let's just stop the server, start it again just to make sure everything's all good. And yep, we've got all the loadout. Okay, so now we've got it installed and we've got it working. We're going to go over the configuration. So go to plugins, you'll get 2 directories. We're interested in WorldGuard for this tutorial. I'll do a world edit in another tutorial, but WorldGuard is what we're focused on today, so open that directory. Now you should have worlds directory and a config.yml. So going to quickly go over. So there's a global configuration, and then there's per world configurations. This config here is the global configuration. So for instance, I'm going to show you in a minute how you can set fire spread to false. So in all your worlds, fire spread will be false in the global configuration. That means any worlds on the server will have fire spread off. Now, if I was to go into a certain world and then edit the config for that, which I'll show you as well, this will override the global configuration, and then I could enable fire spread in this world if I wanted to. And it also has blacklist per worlds as well. But we're going to open the config.yml and I'm going to go over this. So it does recommend using Notepad++ and other things because it uses a YML format. I'm just going to use WordPad for now. You can use Notepad, but I do not recommend using Notepad. But let's go over this. So first of all, we have the protection. Enforce single sessions, because this is a boolean, you can set it to true or false, and at the moment it does nothing at the moment, so ignore that. Item durability, you can set that to true or false as well, and this will make tools invincible, so when you use them they won't degrade. So if you set this to true, they will degrade. If you set it to false, they won't degrade. Remove infinite stacks, because this is another boolean. This will scan players' inventories for any infinite stacks, and if they do have an infinite stack, it will remove it. Disable XP orb drops, so this is when people kill mobs, whether or not it drops the orbs. If people drop a lot of orbs, for instance, it may lag the server, and so this was a big problem when 1.0 I believe came out. So you might want to enable this or disable this, and then disable obsidian generators. So you can disable or enable whether you want people to make obsidian generators. Okay. There is also some chest protection for WorldGuard, but it's not the best. There are many other plugins like LWC and Locket that does the chest protection. I'm not going to go over this tutorial because it's just such a small part of it. So if you wanted to use it, you're going to have to look on the website, enable it to true or false. Okay, so now on the physics section. So you can allow portals anywhere. So for instance, if someone placed a portal block, it would allow it, but by default this is false. No physics on sand, so sand and gravel fall down, and or not, but you can disable this in the config. Disable water damage blocks. Now this is a list of ID of the blocks that prevent water from destroying, such as redstone. So for instance, when redstone's on the floor, water comes along, it erodes it. You can actually add the ID for a redstone. I don't know it off the top of my head, but if you were to add the ID, it would not be water damage, as it were. Okay, so ignition, you can disable whether or not you want TNT to destroy the terrain, but if you set this to true, please note that it will not disable the damage to entities and players. If you want to disable the damage, then you're going to want to block TNT. And then block lighter will obviously the flint and steel, if you want it to be used or not. Okay, so regions. These are okay. So max region count per player. By default, it's 7. So this is how many times the player can, how many regions the player can own if they're using the region claim command, which I'll go over in the region section. Claim only inside existing regions, so people can claim land only if they own the land that they have in a region. So I'll go over more about this when we do the region part of it, but it doesn't work 100% of the time, so do not depend on this. Invincibility removes mobs, so this enables to have mobs to be removed inside invincibility areas. So if you have an area which has invincibility, you can remove the mobs. Again, I'll go over that as well. Max claim volume, this is the size of the region in block size, so 30,000 by default. This is width times breadth times height, and 3,000 is the max, so you can up that or lower that. High frequency flags, so these, if you want to enable flags such as water flow and lava flow, you have to enable this. I'm going to go over the flags later, but you'll see this in a second. Enable the regions. If you don't want regions at all, then you can enable it by setting that to false. Use scheduler, so you can disable that or disable that whether you want to use the scheduler with it. And then the wand ID, this by default is string or spider string, and this just allows you to check regions you're in, so you can change that to a different ID should you wish. Okay, so simulation. As you might know, Sponge doesn't work completely correctly in the game, and so WorldGuard tries to almost emulate it, as it were. So you can enable whether a sponge can be used with a enable true or false. The redstone allows you to power the sponges to turn them on and off, and then how much the water reduces when a sponge is used. Okay, so now onto the fire. Disable lava fire spread, so if fire is next to like a wooden house, for instance, it will set it alight, but you can disable this in the config here. We've also got lava spread blocks, so this is the blocks which will enable fire spread. So I don't know, for instance, maybe you wanted obsidian, I don't know why, to spread fire. You can enable it here by putting the ID for obsidian. And disable fire spread blocks, This is the list of IDs that can be burned. If the value of this is not defined, then the fire spread behavior will not be affected. And then you can disable all fire spread and enable it in the boolean here. Suppress tick sync warnings. This is the global configuration. This is just for when you have too much synchronization ticks. It comes up on the console. Can't keep up, can't keep up. If you get spam with that a lot and you just want to get rid of it, set that to true and it will remove these warnings. You got disable health regain, so whether or not players regain health, like in a few versions ago, I can't remember. And then pumpkin scuba. This is quite a cool one. When players wear a pumpkin on their head, it allows them to breathe underwater. I think that's a pretty cool one. So you can set that to true. Mobs. Anti-wolf dumbness. This prevents wolves from getting hurt in a number of ways that the wolves like to hurt themselves. For instance, wolves like jumping into cactuses because they're silly. So if you want to block this, you can add that to anti-wolf dumbness. Because I mean, my wolf, when I had it on another server, kept jumping into cactuses and it was just being dumb. So if you want to remove that. Block creature spawn. So this is a list of creatures like pig, chickens, and you can just deny them from spawning altogether, which is quite useful. So for instance, I could add pig, and now pigs won't spawn anywhere on the server. Okay, I believe you might have to put them in quotation marks. I'm not sure about that. If it does work with quotation marks, if it doesn't work with quotation marks, just remove them. It should work. One of the two. Block fireball explosions. So these are the explosions from ghasts, I believe, and enable disable them exploding. Block fireball plot damage again. So if you don't want terrain to be manipulated by the fireball, then set it to true. Block creeper block damage. So when creepers blow up, they make a big terrain destroying. You can set that to true. Disable enderman griefing. Endermans like to take blocks randomly, especially in the middle of tree trunks. It's a bit annoying, so you can set that to true. And then block creeper explosion. That's the damage that creepers do. So they'll just like fall over and die. They won't explode. Okay. So dynamics. We're on to the dynamics section. So disable grass growth. So whether or not grass spreads. Disable ice melting. Whether ice is formed. Ice is melted when heated with like a torch or glowstone. Disable snow formation, so whether or not snow forms naturally. Mushroom spread, where you want mushrooms to spread. Snow melting, whether you want snow to melt, the same with ice, with heat. Leaf decay, whether you not want leaves to degrade over time. And ice formation, whether or not you want ice to be formed naturally. Okay, now Blacklist. I believe I'm not going to go over this part of it. These are things like databases and whatnot. If you want to log stuff, I'm not going to go over this part because it's not very well used. So yeah, that's that. Summary on start is just the. If you noticed on the startup, it told us all about the plugin, what was running, what sort of protections. You can set that to true or false. Weather, you can set whether it's always raining to true or false. Disable power creepers, so when creepers get struck by lightning, you can set that to true and they won't go super power creepers. You can disable weather altogether if you really wanted to. You can also disable whether a lightning strike will start a fire, and then you can also have it always thundering in a certain world. Prevent lightning strike blocks, I believe, is the list of block IDs to prevent lightning from striking, so it won't strike certain blocks. Disable thunderstorms, where you want thunderstorms to happen, and disable pig zombification. So again, like the creepers, if a pig gets zapped with a lightning bolt, then it will zombify, so you can disable that. From here, comes to the end now, almost there. Crops, disable creature trampling, so when people and players, mobs, walk over crops, it of course turns to dirt. You can disable that, and you can also disable it for players as well. Okay, so use the player move event. This will disable or enable the player move event. Disabling it will disable the entry and exit and healing flags when using the regions, but will reduce some server load should you find it using a lot of server load. Op permissions, whether or not want ops to have all the permissions. And then player damage, these are the certain damage tags. So teleport on void, falling damage. Sometimes when you teleport you get in the void and you get spazzed out and you lose health. You can disable, you can set that to true. Disable drowning damage, void damage, fire damage, all work specifically the same. Pretty self-explanatory there, I believe, except for maybe contact damage. Contact damage is when a player is called by hitting something, for instance a cactus. And then auto invincible permissions, so if someone has the node, I cannot remember it off the top of my head, it is WorldGuard.auto-invincible. It will make them invincible when they join the game. And this is the global configuration. So what if I set, for instance, TNT, block TNT damage to true? All worlds will have no block TNT damage. However, say, I don't know why, but if I wanted the nether world to have allowed TNT, I would have to go to the world nether, open up the config YML, right, remove these two ellipses, curly brackets, whatever, and then paste it in. I can then change the value, save it, and there we go. We've modified it now so that the netherworld will enable. We won't have block TNT because the world config will override the global configuration. Okay, so the regions.yml, don't worry about this. This is just for saving the regions, which we'll be going over in a second. You can modify it there, but I don't recommend it. I would recommend it doing it in game. It's just much easier, less likely to make mistakes. But now we're going to go over the blacklist. So open up the blacklist.txt, and you get this big load of text. So how to use blacklist. So the blacklist will disable and enable certain things from happening in your world. So it has some events like break, destroy a block, placing a block, using a block, interacting with a block, dropping an item, and acquiring an item. And there's certain actions you can do. For instance, denying it, allowing it, and whatnot. So I'm going to do a series of examples, and hopefully you get the gist of how to do it, basically. So first thing, let's make one where you can't place buckets. So we're going to start it off with a square bracket, and then we're going to do lava bucket. Yeah, you can use the name of it, or you can use ID, it doesn't matter. Water bucket, and then bucket. So put all the IDs or names in two curly brackets, separating them with commas. On the next line, we're going to put the event, so on -use equals deny, comma, tell. So basically, when any of the items above are used, then it will stop it from being used, and then it will tell a player that it's not allowed to use that. So I'm saying I got a lava bucket, I right click the floor in the nether, and it will stop me from placing the lava, and then it will say, Samkio, you cannot place this lava bucket. Okay, that's one example. Let's do another example. So TNT, let's have TNT, and let's have only admins can place TNT. So let's have ignore groups, so this is on the second line, equals admins, and you can add as many groups as you like. So for instance, I could add mods as well. And now I'm going to add the event, so on place, and then we'll have deny it, so we won't let them use it. We'll notify an admin with the WorldGuard notify permission, and then we'll kick the player for doing it, because they should know better, they shouldn't do it. Okay, so that's another example. Let's just add one more. Let's have a acquiring of a certain item. Let's have an egg. We won't let people have eggs. Right, so let's have ignore group. So ignore groups. Failed at typing today. Groups equals admins and mods. And now we're going to add another option, which is going to be ignore perms. So if you wanted individual players, which are in a group, for instance, we can instead give them a permission. So ignore perms, and then equal sign, and then this will be the list of permissions that won't be affected. And then we can make up any own permission we like. So for instance, egg.meister. So if they have the permission node egg.meister, then they can use X, they can pick up X. So there we go, and then let's have on acquire, because that's the event we want. Yeah, acquire. We're going to deny it. We're going to ban the player, and then we'll tell them, we'll notify an admin as well. So there we go. That's how to do that. But one other thing, I'm going to change this to ban. Instead of banning the player, we're going to tell them off with tell flag, and then we're going to add a message. So message here equals, and then we have an optional message to show, like, you cannot pick up eggs. Now instead of using eggs, we could instead use a percentage sign S, and this will replace the value we had with the item ID. So for instance, we might have multiple ones here, like egg and then like milk bucket, yeah, for instance, and then when they pick it up it will show eggs, but we don't want that to happen. We want you cannot pick up and then $S, and then it will show milk buckets if they picked up a milk bucket, and it will show eggs if they picked up an egg. And there you go. So hopefully this will get the gist of it, of how to use it. You can add comments as well, but that's the same as message pretty much. All the events here, if there's anything I haven't gone over, you can always look here, and there'll be links and information on the description as well. Okay, so save that. Now these, remember, are per world. You'll have to do it for each world. There is no global blacklist, I believe. I don't think so anyway. Right. So that concludes part 1 of the WorldGuard complete guide. Next part we're going to be going in-game, and we're going to go over the permissions, not permissions, regions, and any other extra commands and stuff. So see you then.